Hello everybody, thank you very much for this huge support and tell me on every private message or a public message, hey Sergio, I would like to see how you have painted these 28mm. Please tell me how to improve my skills when I paint my board games. So for that reason, I've decided to paint these 28mm. I would like to hear your feedback from this model because remember, I'm going to explain you how to paint this method, my method, the method that a lot of people now is following and getting awesome results. The capibases said or named for my students is just a joke. But remember, the trick about this, if you don't know nothing about this name or this way to paint, it's just because I don't use glazes. So if you hate glazing, if you hate paint with the glazing, this method is to you. So my way to paint will be just inside of your dilution, inside of your mixes, just add a drop of water. Just that, just a single drop, nothing else. And then with this mix, like a thick layer, you will start to paint every base coat. Something like that you will see. You don't have to buy the perfect brush, you don't have to buy just the single hair on your on your brush. I heard a lot of creepy stories about, hey, what kind of brushes do you use? As you can see on the screen, an old number 2. So a super thick and huge brush, and in that case old, because I'm painting the base coat. So don't feel stressed painting that. It's just boom, paint, nothing else. Then with the next layers, you remove the mistakes. You don't have to have at the beginning everything perfectly, right? So as you can see, something quick, something like that, and enjoy painting. This is my goal with all my video tutorials. You asked me, or you told me that you want to see my best level in a 28mm with capibases, with my method. This case, in this video tutorial, I would like to show you all about that. Because I know you love the shiny, the final effects, the final touches. I've decided to don't show you in this video tutorial the final steps because I would like to focus all my attention on the previous layers. So with this video tutorial, you will learn how to build up the volumes, how to create everything about that, and then in the next video tutorials, how to paint these tiny touches to get or rise the light. Just that. Okay, because if I show you everything on this one, then you will just pick the final details, the final lights. So in my opinion, if you follow this video tutorial, you will see how you have to paint with the first layers with enough light, and if you get these layers, these lights, will be awesome, will be perfect. But because I would like to give you more tools, I'm going to give you something else in the next one. So why I've decided to paint or prime with double or with white and black? Because at the beginning of the model, you don't know well what kind of colors will you use. If you think that you will paint something very, very dark, you can use only black if you want. Will be okay, you don't have to prime with white. If you prime with white, it's because then you will take a picture about the lights, about the volumes, and will be helpful to you. If you feel that is not helpful to you, you don't have to do it. So if you want to paint something very dark, you can use just a black base coat. But if you want to paint something with different colors, with red, yellow, orange, light blues, be careful with the black primer because you will lose the light inside of your colors. So this saturation, you will lose it because if you paint with these thick layers, these thick base coats, at the beginning looks like don't care. So if you use something thicker, why you have to have a white under that base coat or layer? Because if you have black, this black color go out through your layer, and this vibrant blue or red will be a bit lower without this vibrant light, this saturation. So, and this is maybe the idea why I have this saturation on my colors, on my lights, on my miniatures, because I use double primer, black first and then over that with white. So, and you can enjoy and laugh with my brushes. So this is the way I've painted. If you have seen my model on the social media, you will enjoy, because the result is, I think, really nice. If you like it, if you are watching this video tutorial, it's because you like the model and the results. Remember, why I don't use the glazing at the beginning? Because for sure, glazing, it's okay, it's a nice technique, but always at the end. And I use my airbrush at the end with the glazing, so you will use the airbrush at the end. If you feel too much stress, you don't have to do it. Just with your brush, you can glazing over that. But in my opinion, it will be easier, quicker than if you use your airbrush than your brush. But this is just the way to do it. If you don't aim well with your brush, you don't aim with your airbrush, or it's a tiny area, or you feel a lot of stress, use your brush. But at the beginning, I would like to invite you to use the airbrush, because you will enjoy. Once time you understand how to use it, you will see the differences. Why I don't like paint with glazing at the beginning? This is a typical old method, and for sure was okay in the past, but now you have different tools to skip that method, because it's really tough to paint, because you need to invest 1 weekend only to paint the first layers, the base coats, and then if you did it something wrong, you have to repaint it with glazing again. So it's really tough. So I don't like it, I hate it. So for that reason, I've painted that way. So if you like the results, you will see I don't keep tricks to me. I love share all my knowledge on my Patreon with everybody. So, and for that reason, you will see a lot of jokes or ways to paint or my brushes. So, and remember, in this video tutorial, we decide to show with this huge zoom. And for that reason, you can see my fingers huge too. And in some moments, a bit blurry, the image. It's a bit blurry, sorry for that, we can't do anything else. So it's a lot of zoom. So I think you will enjoy much more with this zoom to see everything than see with a lot of distance. So after this video tutorial, I would like to hear your voice, hear your feedback, because I would like to know if you loved this kind of 28mm, to bring more projects like that to my Patreon, or you prefer something like 70s, bust, something like that. So I would like to do both, but I don't have enough time. Remember that I need a lot of time to paint the model and record the video, film it, video editing, everything. So please tell me with your feedback everything, and we'll see the way to do it. As for now, what happened now? Remember that I explained you that you have to choose or decide a first shadow as your base coat. What means first shadow? Means that if you loved paint with, for example, lime green, and you want this green, you have to choose something darker. Something darker means something darker. You don't have the perfect color to use as shadow. Doesn't exist the shadow from the lime green. So please, if you want to use more blue, more black, more orange, red, the color that you like it, just something darker, because then you will mix with that color to go up and get the lime color that you like it. Because if you start with the lime as a base coat, then the problem is that you have to use lighter colors, close to white, and then you will have a pale green and not the vibrant lime green. So remember that this is the trick, and this is the way I decide to paint with the first shadow. So everything that you see here, it's the first shadow. But if you watch the video tutorial, you will see that I started to paint on the axe, on the face and the chest some darker lines. This is because when I paint at 28mm, this is the first capi trick or capi tip. So when you paint something tiny, smaller than usually you paint, and you need more contrast, more definition, something to get better results. So remember, paint with your base coat, your first shadow, something darker, but then paint your second shadow in some places. For example, the places that you can see, to get something darker only there. So this will be your deepest shadow, right? So why I painted on the face? Because it's tiny and you need to paint super thin lines, dark lines, to represent and define the volumes. And for that reason, I prefer do it at the beginning than try to do it at the end when you have painted all the layers, all the lights, and you have everything perfectly, less the definition. So remember, these dark linings, it's really important. It's much more important paint the edging, the edge highlights and the dark linings than paint a smooth surface, super boring effect, and have everything similar. To me, it's more interesting have defined everything with these outlinings and paint with texture, layers as you like it. If you want something smooth, perfect. If you want something with less smooth, perfect too. So the idea, once time you have defined everything, you can do everything. So this is the one typical mistake that people use or paint without the outlinings. Remember, the dark lining and the light lining or edge highlights, it's really important. If you see, for example, on the between the fingers, I've painted with that color, dark color, and then repainted with the base coat, dark shadow, on the fingers. Why? To have exactly the same base coat, the first shadow, and separated with this outlining every finger. Because I've seen a lot of hands with the same shadow between every finger and the shadow on the fingers. So remember, it's different. As you see, if you paint with a thick layer, with this capibase, you will get a faster result because you will remove or repaint everything just with one layer. If you have to fix the mistakes with the glaze, wow, you need to paint 10, 20, 50 layers, something crazy. Just with this, it's just one base coat again, and then one layer else, just that. And you can get a super thin dark lining. Remember that this is the key when you paint at 28mm. Remember that I would like to show you everything on the skin, and I would like to explain you the differences, at least to me, between skin and armor. Sometimes, or the old way to do it, the way I don't like it, I respect it because it was the beginning and it's okay too, but in my opinion, to my taste, I don't want to say that this way to do it is the best or the other way is wrong. So it's just different ways to do it. If you love the other way, like the armor I said, it's just because your taste say that it's perfect to you. So I respect it, it's perfect. So I don't want to say, I'm never going to say that something is wrong because everybody have a style and every style to me it's correct. But to my taste, I think that you are painting the skin, on the skin, not the muscles. So you don't have to draw an outlining around every muscle, because if you have this dark lining around every muscle, looks like you are painting Mr. Potato. So you can take out different muscles like pieces, like an armor. So to me this is wrong. So how we can fix that armor effect to get the skin result? You have to paint, like you can see with these capibases, a thick layer, without the brush strokes like an artist. So if you see, it's more like a clean lines around the circles I've painted. Remember that this is the room or the area to work then, so should be bigger. Remember that, bigger, not smaller. So remember, you have to repaint the 90% of the previous layer. If you can understand me with this percent, 95%. So you only have to keep just in tiny areas the previous layer, the first shadow. Remember that now you are painting the base coat. So the next layer, try to understand everything like a midtones. So with these kind of midtones or next layers, I paint like a thin lines to connect the muscles. Where you have to connect them? Always on the light, because these layers, these lines, will work as a mid shadows or a different shadow between every muscle. And if you follow these steps correctly, you will get something like a waves around the muscles, and you will get better and better results. In my opinion, better than when you have a perfect dark linings around every muscle, because to my taste doesn't work. For example, now on the leg, you will see how I connect these two muscles, because if I keep this dark lining between them, will look like fake, like a mistake, like something with a cut between both. Like I can take out with my hands the muscle. So I connect them there, for example, and I use this new layer as the next shadow to next color. For example, here with the knee, I think you will understand much better because I paint these kind of thin lines. And I keep these tiny shadows only on the areas I think you have to paint the shadow. So we repaint 90% of the previous layer. Remember that, a new tip. And as you see, I don't use glazing, something like that. So it's thick layers to get this result, faster results. And I think the way to get a lot of information, or the way that you can draw this information, because if you try to draw like a freehand, for example, to represent veins, for example, now I try to represent veins on the hand, and for that reason I paint like that. So I create these kind of thin lines, because in my opinion was an area without too much information, and I would like to add something else. Remember that I always love add more and more and more colors, texture, everything. So for that reason, won't be less. I keep the previous layer, the previous shadow, only in some places, tiny places, close to the knuckles. Now looks like I've repainted everything, but my way to do it, it's like repainted 90%. So I keep the previous layer on the fingers on both sides to represent like a cylinders on every finger. Now next layer, the same, a thick layer with a drop of water inside of the color, just that, okay? If you can follow the bar under this, you will see that I add only one drop. If I add 3 drops, means that you have to add more water. Remember that, it's easy. So don't feel stressed. So you are watching everything with a huge zoom. So you will see more defects or mistakes on the model than you will see when you have on your fingers, on your hands. If you don't like to use the airbrush, if you don't feel comfortable using the airbrush and you don't know how to use the glazing at the end, Don't worry, because if you follow every step after this video tutorial, before to use the airbrush, you will see how the result is really awesome without the glazing. But because I would like to give you more tools and show you that you can get better and better results, I have to bring you more new stuff or new ways or new elements like the airbrush in at 28mm. So this is just to show you that this way to paint, I've designed it to paint 28mm, not 75. And because a lot of people on Patreon asking me about board games and miniatures like Games Workshop, I decided to paint one. If you see with these layers, I try to repaint everything without care. Where is the light? I try to represent volumes, geometrical shapes. So at the beginning you have to understand that the model it's like a huge cylinder, the whole model, and then every part have like a own geometrical shape. For example, the leg is like a cylinder, the arm is like a cylinder, and then inside of the arm you have muscles like elbow, like biceps, triceps. So you have different volumes like the elbow too, or the shoulder. So you have to deconstruct all of that in tiny volumes. But remember, first big volumes, big, and then going to something smaller, to the details. Don't try to paint the details at the beginning. For example, now you will see how I use the previous layer as shadow, but just like a mid shadow to me, or I connect in some places. But I will keep just this previous layer in some places to have this different color, different tone, different mid-tone to create this volume. I think you can see perfectly on the arm and on the leg. And with the next layers, you will see every time better and better. And please, you have to paint with a uniform base coat or uniform layer. So if you have like a strips inside, paint a new layer with the same color, just that, to have a uniform base coat. Remember the knuckles and this kind of bones on the hand, it's really important, paint them. It's like the edging on a hand. You can see the colors that I used something different. I changed the tonality, I changed with more orange, more pink, more light, more white. So I don't try to add a lot of crazy colors at the beginning because this is to me the artistic part at the end. So you can see for sure now I use the number 1 of my brushes, not my old number 2. And I've painted on the same places, the same area, and bigger to have then enough room to continue working on that. When you are painting this kind of muscles, I recommend you always move the light to the top, close to the next shadow, to the next volume. And with that, you will get the lightest color close to the deepest shadow. Or if not it's the deepest, it's a shadow. This is the way to represent and to draw the volumes. At least my way to do it. And you will see how I connect with some previous layers and then stop to connect then, because I have the previous color as a perfect shadow to the next color. If I know that I would like to continue adding layers, lighters, I'll try to connect with more previous layers, with thin lanes, to try to remove the armor effect or Mr. Potato effect. So you can see these kind of thin layers to connect them, to link the muscles. And always try to think about the geometrical shape, if it's like a sphere, like a cylinder. And I think will be easier to represent the volumes than if you think that the light is coming from here, but now I don't know how to continue. So you can see, for example, with these lights, I stop to connect them because I have a perfect layer between them. Works as a previous shadow for that. And you see that I build up perfectly the volumes. So with this, it's perfect. But then in the next video tutorial, I'm going to explain you how to continue adding lights. So remember, this is really tiny model, and you will see the result at the end. So if you want to see, check on my social media because you will see the model done. And I hope surprise you. So I don't have anything to say more about that model. I hope you have enjoyed watching this and ready to the next video tutorial because I think will be really great. So, and please paint 20 millimeters like that. Enjoy painting because it's the most important, and don't feel stressed about the painting contest or social media or something like that. Just paint to yourself. Have fun and see you in the next one. Bye bye.